Hello, hello. Running a little bit late. So I'm doing my final checks now. I think I'm good to go. All right. If you're here and watching and you can hear me, would you just drop a message in the chat, a thumbs up or a yes or whatever sounds exciting. Make sure that everybody can hear me okay. Hi, Obu. I'm doing very well. How are you? Sorry, I had my head so deep in my code that I forgot that I was doing this, and so I'm running late. That's why I'm running late, but I think I'm ready. Apologize for that. So today I'm going to be doing some live coding. I started on this, was it last week? I think. Um, Adding a feature to my Kivik library that I maintain, open source library I maintain. So let me just recap that because I'm not sure not everybody was here last week. Let me pull up the GitHub issue and just explain what I'll be doing. If I can find the right tab. So this is the issue, and it relates to so first background. I talked about this last week, but again, I'll go over it again. Kivik is a driver for CouchDB. CouchDB is similar to MongoDB or Dynamo or something like that. It's a JSON document storage database, and I've written this library for it. That is probably I think it's the most popular Go library for the database. And I wanted to change the get method. The get method is what retrieves a single document. However, if you pass a particular argument to it, it will return multiple versions of the same document. And my driver did not support that up till now. It still doesn't. That's what I want to fix. So I'm trying to modify this to return an iterator that may have 0 documents if the document isn't found, or 1 under the normal circumstance, or potentially multiple revisions of the same document in this particular case. So that's what I'm trying to modify it to do. Let me pull up the documentation for CouchDB just to point out, to refer to when making these changes, because this is what is the authoritative source on CouchDB. All right, so this is the documentation for the get document endpoint. And the option I'm trying to support in particular is this one called OpenRevs. This is the one option that has the opportunity to return more than one of these documents. So that's what I'm trying to make the driver do in a safe, backward compatible way. Now, last week I did do some changes that I didn't commit, and I have the working copy. However, I'm probably going to discard that and start over because I was looking at it earlier today and I kind of forgot where I was going with it. And I've made some other changes in the meantime, so it didn't necessarily merge perfectly. Having said that, I did make some changes I did commit last week. They're just not the ones that are left in my working copy. So let's dive in and see where we go, see where we can get. So earlier today, I was working on this branch called ops, which is not what I'm talking about today. Let me make sure that is stashed and stored away. Good. Just check out master, and I'll create a new branch from master. You can see the open revs. That's the work I had started last week. I may refer to that today as if I forget or need to, but otherwise I'm just going to start from scratch. Like I said, I did make some changes that were committed, but what left my working copy, I don't feel like it was particularly valuable, so I'll leave it there in case I want to refer to it, but I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to create a new branch. Open revs 2. By the way, I have a fan blowing on me. If that's making a noise that you can hear, it's bothering you, please let me know in chat and I'll turn it off and suffer through the heat. Otherwise, I'm going to enjoy the moving air. All right, let me open up my editor also. Zoom in a little bit. Oh, crap. Hang on. I'll be right back. Wow, I just spilled a glass of water. Glad it was only water. All right, I'm back. Don't think I destroyed anything except maybe a small piece of paper I don't care about. All right, what was I doing? That's not what I wanted. I wanted to open. I think this is the right file. Still water on my desk. All right, so this is the function that needs to be modified. And the main thing I want to make this do is rather than returning a document, I want it to return a result set. Let me find an example of another. This is some of the preliminary work I did last week, but it wasn't even compiling. So that's one reason I'm not bothering with it. Let me find an example of another method that does the same thing, returns the same thing. There's one of those here in find, I think. I think there's a method just called find. Yes, driver.rows, that's what I want to return. So let me have this return. All right, so now you can see that it's breaking some of my code. I have tried Golang and I didn't like it. I found it to be very slow, and I didn't find that it did anything that I cared for. So that's why I don't use Golang. I know a lot of people love it though, so you know, no judgment. All right, so if I change this return type, actually I want to check one more thing to make sure I did this last week before I continue. One change I made last week, or yeah, I made it, I don't remember how I committed it, was to change the way the driver works. Yeah, I did that. So a little bit of background. This library uses a two-part architecture the same way that in the standard library, the SQL, database SQL and database SQL driver is a two-part thing. This is a two-part thing. So I have the front end, which is called Kivik, and that's what the user talks to. And then I have a back end, which is pluggable, and there's multiple ones. So I'm specifically modifying the CouchDB backend, which is the main one. But I also have some backends to do an in-memory database or on-file system database and different things like that. But I'm modifying the main one, and I needed to change the driver interface, but where the front end and the back end talk to each other. And I did that last week here. So there's two versions of this interface. And the old one is the one that returns a single document. That's the one I just changed from. And the new one returns this rows. And that's what I'm changing to, and I need to make it work now. So the first thing we notice here is that the existing driver.document does not satisfy the driver.rows interface. That's expected. But I want to make the smallest possible change that will make this work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this type from the driver package. I'm going to put it here. Actually, I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to unexport it. And I'm going to make my implementation return this new copy type. So it's still going to be broken, but now I can work on modifying that type to satisfy the necessary interface. So let me pull up that interface. Here's what the interface looks like. Pull that over here to the side at another window. I hope that's not too crowded when I'm zoomed in like this. So I need to make this document type satisfy this interface. So I need to start adding these methods to it. So let's just get started there. Now, I'm not going to worry about making them do anything correct right now. I'm just going to make it satisfy the interface, then I'll make it correct. Let this be driver.row. Func. Actually, I'm going to just do it like this for now. Close, error, return nil, func, document, update sequence, string, return quote quote, func, star document, offset int 64. Oops, I forgot the parentheses. Func, star document, total rows 64, return 0. Now, some of these methods, I'm going to close this window now to get it out of this side panel out of the way to zoom in a little bit better. So now I know some of these functions will never be needed on this type. In fact, these last three, they're already perfect. They'll never be needed. The next and close, though, do matter, and those are the ones I need to modify here. Question on the chat is, would you say that narration of what you're doing is an important part of being a programming streamer? I don't know. Probably. I don't really watch programming streams, so I don't know what other programmers do. I think that being able to explain what you're doing in your code is important as a programmer, whether you're streaming or not, because you're going to need to talk about your code to your colleagues. If you're doing, even if it's asynchronous, if you're doing a code review on a pull request, you need to be able to explain what you're doing. And if you ever hope to become a senior or something like that, you'll be tutoring and mentoring other people. So that's more like what I feel I'm doing here is just sort of providing, thinking out loud, explaining what I'm doing the same way I would if I was sitting next to you at my desk and you were a new member on my team and I was walking you through the code. So that's a really important skill whether you stream or not. So I think it's useful to be able to do that. It's more important probably if you're streaming. I suppose, because if I was just sitting here breathing at you, I don't think that would be very interesting. So that's. I hope that answers the question. If not, let me know. All right. So now the next method is intended to populate this value. So I need to give it a name now, and I need to make this receiver have a name. So I need to modify this to implement that thing. So let me pull up the definition of driver.rel, put that in the side again. All right. So I'm gonna, some of these fields are not available here, and I may or may not care about that. I'll decide, but I'm gonna do the ones that are easy first. So I'm gonna set row.rev equals d.rev. That's easy. Then the body is, okay, row.doc equals, okay, now this is interesting. Well, this will work, but it's going to be a memory leak, and I'll explain in a second. And then attachments is easy because it's the same thing. Row.attachments equals d.attachments. Return nil. Oops. Okay, so I said there's a possible memory leak here. You may notice that row.doc is an IO reader, whereas this is an IO read closer. So there's a potential that I'm returning a reader that will be read but never closed. Now, I don't know if that's actually true because I control the everyone who uses this row struct. So it's possible I already close it anyway, but I need to investigate and make sure, or else I'm going to have a potential problem. So let me just look for an example. Where is this used? It's used in DB. So decode item. So, okay, I think I'm not closing that, which I probably should be doing. I don't know if this is the only place it'll ever matter, or if there's an outstanding memory leak in my code. I'm not certain. But decode item takes, well, okay, no, this might not be right. This might not be the place. Let's see how this is done here. I don't even know what decode item does anymore. It's been so long. It takes a JSON decoder. And an interface. An empty interface. Yeah, this isn't helpful. Let me go back here again. Actually, I'm most specifically interested. I actually have the same concern with value, but I'll investigate the doc here first. The result set makes sense. This is probably where it's happening. Yeah, okay, so scandoc probably needs to do that closing. I'm not sure if scandoc is the only place, because someone could iterate through without calling scandoc, and I would want that to close it as well. So let me think about where I want to put that. Maybe I want to put that in my next function. This rows has a next result set, which could probably do the same thing, and then next. What I really should do is write a test that determines that I'm not closing it, and then make that test pass. I'm not sure if that's possible right now, because again, I'm not sure if this is ever actually possible given the current state of code. Okay, I'm gonna investigate that. So I'm gonna stash my work. This is what I've done so far. Let's create a whip commit. I'm gonna check out master. I'm gonna do an investigation right now. So I want to see if anywhere where row dot rows dot doc, where is this being set? That's what I'm interested in right now. So here it's new reader. That doesn't need to be closed, so that's no problem. Let me do it this way. Sorry that menu is so small. If you're on a phone or something, you can't read that at all, I know. But I'm finding all references to this doc field. I'm just going to go through them one by one. So I don't really care about the test cases because that's just tests. So these are all bytes.newReader, bytes.newReader, bytes.newReader. That's it. Okay, so it's not actually a concern yet. Let me check the same on value, although I'm sure it's the same case. Bytes.newReader, yeah, okay. And then bytes.newReader. What's this? Well, that's just where it's defined. Yeah, okay. So it's not a concern. It's not a concern yet, but it will be after I make my change. So let me go back to my branch. Open revs 2. I'll uncommit what I just did, so it's back in my working copy, and let's go back to town here. All right, so I'm potentially introducing a place where I need to close that, and I need to think about how I want to accomplish that. Now so if I, where's my, so here, if I set row.doc to equal body, yeah, then I need, well, actually, in this case, I don't need the iterator to do the closing for me because I can do the closing here. Because it's only a single document. That makes it super easy. So I don't need to bother with the the iterator abstraction at all. I just need to make sure that my close method here closes that, and that's easy to do. So let me do that. I will have this just return, let me add a receiver there, d.body.close. Problem solved. Problem solved. Now, this isn't perfect because the next iterator needs to return io.eof when there are no more documents in the iterator, and it doesn't do that right now, which means that somebody using this code as it's currently written would continue to receive the same document infinitely, and I don't want that, obviously. So let's just add a field to this struct that indicates closed. You know, I would use atomic.bool here. However, that was only added in, I don't remember which version. Let's check. It was a fairly recent addition. Go 120, I think. And this library needs to support as far back as Go 1.17. Is it a syncatomic? I'm not sure. Yeah, it's syncatomic. Let's look for bool. Type bool was added in Go 1.19. And like I said, I need to support 1.17 and older, or newer. So I'm not going to use this. Once I drop support for Go 1.17 and 1.18, then I can use this. For now, I'm going to use a different, it's a little more cumbersome, but it's just as effective. I'm going to use an int32, because then I can use a different atomic function. So now I need to check if atomic.load int32 d.closed does not equal 0, return .eof. I don't know if closed is the, let me rename this to red, since there's only a single one, and I'll add a comment. Actually, I don't, yeah, that should work. I need to set this also. So I'm going to change the way I do this. I'm going to do atomic add int32. Now this will add a value and it returns the new value. So I'm going to add 1 to it, and if it is greater than 1, then we return io.eof. So it starts as 0 as the 0 value. The first time I call next, it will add 1 to it. So 0 plus 1 equals 1. It returns that. It's not greater than 1, so I'll continue. The second time I call it, it will update, it will be 2, and then it will return io.eof. So this essentially atomically handles the closing of my single document at the same moment. Now I want close to do the same thing. Actually, you know, I'm not going to do add. It won't matter, but I'll explain why. There's a potential for a very obscure bug if I use add. I think load is actually what I want. Let me see. Well, automatically loads. No, I want swap is what I want. I think. Let me make sure that that's supported in older versions of Go. Swap. All right, will this work? Go 1.2. Oh yeah, that'll definitely work. So rather than add, I'm going to use swap. So swap sets the value to new and returns old. So I'm going to swap it to 1, and now if it's greater than 0. Why is that telling me? What's the problem here? Swapped. That's the problem. Okay. Let me finish this and then I'll explain what I just did and why. All right. So here in next, I swap whatever the current value is with 1. And if the old value was not 0 or was greater than 0, then I return io.eof. So I don't get stuck in that infinite loop of reading the current document. And then in close, I just use store int32, which just sets the value to 1 and ignores what the current value is because I don't care in that case. Now, why did I want swap instead of add? There's a possibility of a bug if I were to use add. If you called this enough times to saturate an int32, so what would that be? If I were to call it that many times, or actually it would be 31 since it's unsigned, or it is signed. So if I were to call it 2 million times or whatever, I might have an overflow and it would be a bug. Wouldn't be a very serious bug. Basically, you'd sit there a million times, 2 million times, whatever, 2 billion times, not getting a result, and then boom, you get a result, and then you don't get a result again. I imagine is what would happen. Better safe than sorry, though. All right, I think this is done. I'm gonna. No, it says the test has failed. I'm not sure why, but I'll investigate that in a second. I think this is done, though. Actually, let's look at that now. Let's see why it's failing. Oh, it has. Right. The tests are failing because the tests have not been updated to the new interface yet. So I guess I should work on that next. All right. So this. Oh, let's just pick one. Get started. Start at the top and work our way down. So what am I testing here? This test has a lot of subtests. Where's the main test? Get. Okay. Let's go back to the failure. Yeah, okay, so it expected rows to be returned, but it's not rows, it's a body. So I can just change this, I think, to doc dot. I'm gonna rename from doc to rows, just to be consistent. And now let's call this doc. Was that the right name? Doesn't seem to be. What did I do wrong? Oh, what? Oh, of course not, because I have to call the iterator on it. So, let's do row var row colon equals make. Nope, not make, new driver dot row, and then let's no, that's fine. If actually, so now we can call this on row, I think. All right, I think that fixes that particular one, and then this becomes row and row and row and row and that's going to fail. I'm not sure what that's trying to test against, but it's not going to work. But I'll get back to that because I have other tests that are failing. Okay, so this is an internal function that calls the get method and then tries to use it, but I need to modify it in a similar way. This isn't a test, but it's a function that uses that function internally. So let's rename this to rows, just as I did before, and then var rows. Trying to think if there's a less cumbersome way to do this. Of course, there is if you're using the Kivik library, the front end, but I don't want to use the front end here because this is an internal library. I don't want to have the back end depend on the front end, which depends on the back end. So I want to avoid that. I think I'll just do it the cumbersome way, and I think it'll work fine. I think this will work now. Tests are still failing. Let's see what's going on. They're not. It's compiling now, but the tests are failing. Let me run that in the console. It'll be a little bit easier to see. Okay, so it's just a diff that's failing because it was expecting the old type and it's getting something different. That should be fairly easy to change. Let's test get. Let me close this and this. What was the subtest called? Status OK. This one. So this one's failing. Let me see how this test is being done. Unexpected dock. So right here, this is where it's failing. Yeah, this is the exact same thing I was expecting would fail. So this will never be a driver document anymore. It will be a driver row. Now things are going to be broken. Maybe not as badly as I expected. Oh, maybe this is easier than I thought. Let's see what happens. See if that test passes now. It still doesn't pass, but it's less of a failure. Okay, so you may recall that I deleted a place where I set the body to equal nil with a comment that said determinism. That's what this is. So I'm going to add that back. Let me look at the diff. Right here. This is what I deleted. I'm going to put that back. Except it's going to, instead of dot body, it's going to be dot doc. And I'll explain what that is in just a second. Line 436. Just the right file. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so here it was right after this bit. So that should be row.doc. Looks like it's working now. So what that does is, looking at this diff, it might be more clear. It's doing a sort of a deep equals, or a deep equals, but it's doing it textually on the expected value and the value returned. And one of the fields in that struct is an IO reader, which is kind of hard to compare. I mean, it's not much point in trying to compare an IO reader of nil to this. So I just set it to nil after I've read the values I care about, so that the comparison passes. So that's all that does. Comment on chat is this code shared on GitHub? Yes, it is. It's all open source. GitHub.com/go-kivik/kivik. Or if you want the easier way, go to kivik.io and then click the GitHub link. So this is the website for the project. KIVIK. All right, let me run the test video. I interrupted it because it was taking a while. I'm going to let it run completely. I know some of the tests are going to fail because it's running against a live database. It's doing the integration test against a live database, and that database has some documents in it that the test doesn't expect. So I know it's going to fail, but I'm going to see if there's any surprises. I don't think those are surprises, so I think this is working. I'm going to commit this and push it up to GitHub and let it run the full test suite on GitHub, where it runs it against like 6 different versions of Go and 4 or 5 different versions of CouchDB, and we'll see how that works. Now, I like to do git add -p, which lets me step through each change I've made and just review it. So it's sort of my own code review before I create a pull request, so I can make sure it's what I expect. I'm not getting any debug code or accidental inclusions in my pull request. Now, this there's some cleanup I could do on this. I'll do that later. I'm following the practice of make it work first, then work on optimization later. So I'm just going to see if this all works. Now notice that this doesn't actually change the behavior of my code at all. This doesn't solve my problem. This doesn't make it support returning multiple versions of the document. All this does, it's a refactor only. It doesn't change behavior. It changes the structure of the code to change it from using the old interface that doesn't support multiple documents to the new one that does. I still don't have multiple documents, but now I'm using an interface that supports it. So if this works and the test passed, then my next step is to add that new capability. All right, let's push that up. And I'll click on my GitHub link here, and let's go open a pull request that I will review myself. Waiting. What did I do wrong? Why is it not showing up here? Is GitHub down or slow? It should just pop up here. Let's do it the manual way. Oh, I better know what I did wrong. I forgot to commit. That's what it is. Let me look at the name of the interface for my documentation. Old getter. Yeah, okay. Rose getting interface instead of old getter. All right, now GitHub should tell me I have a new branch. Yes. Now I can create my pull request. Now it's going to take a few minutes, of course, for the test to kick off and run. And meanwhile, I'm going to just do one last review of my own code here. I already looked at this with the git add -p, but it's good to look at it again. So these comments can be deleted. They're no longer necessary here since it's an unexported thing. And I will also, maybe I'll do that right now. I want to lowercase these because they look exported. Just as a sort of good hygiene, it's good practice, in my opinion, to always lowercase your field names, struct names, type names, unless they need to be capitalized, even when they're not exported, as in this case, because the struct type document is unexported, so these are effectively unexported. Now, that's not entirely true. There are times when you want to export these, like if these were being marshaled or unmarshaled as JSON or YAML or XML, then they should be capitalized to be exported for those libraries, but that's not the case here. So I'm going to go ahead and unexport those because it just makes the reading slightly easier. If somebody's looking at this, they don't have to, if they're looking at this here, they don't have to go, oh, is that exported? It's not. So it doesn't need to be. So I'm going to unexport these. And I'm going to delete these comments that aren't necessary since it's not exported anymore. Oh, I want to leave that one for the read because that one actually is useful. That explains how that read is used. Once I switch to atomic.bool, I probably won't need that comment, or at least it will be different. It wouldn't say non-zero. But it's more obvious if it's an actual Boolean. Since I'm using an int32 as a Boolean, I want to leave a comment so that it's obvious what I'm doing. All right. That's good enough. So that's I guess it was useful to review my own code again. Let's see if there's anything else I want to look at. I don't think so. I think it's pretty straightforward here. Let's see how the tests are going. Are they running yet? No, still waiting for that. Let me go ahead and push out that commit, even though it's going to take a little bit longer. Now if we refresh, we'll see that that struct is a little bit shorter. It's a smaller diff. That's kind of nice. All right, so we need to let these tests run. Meanwhile, I'm going to look at some of the fields of the row that I'm not setting right now and decide if I care about that. The main one, in fact, I think the only one that matters is ID. So every document has an ID. Think of it as a primary key. If you're using Mongo, you already know what that's like. Now, I'm not setting that here. And I don't know if I care. And the reason I don't know if I care is because when you get a document, you get it by ID. So I guess I could easily set it. Yeah, why don't I? I think I will. I'll just add the ID here. And then make sure I set that ID to the value here that's sent. Now there is a actually, I don't know if I want to do this, come to think of it. Or if I don't want to know if I want to do it this way. So here I'm just taking the document ID as passed to the function. But there are cases where a document ID might need to be escaped or unescaped, or it might be changed in some ways. And I might prefer to use the document ID as returned from the database rather than the one the user provides, just in case that matters. In which case I need to read that ID from the response rather than inject it from there. So let me think about how I want to do that. First, let me just make this quick change. So now at least I'm setting the ID. It's added to the document. It's being set. Of course, it's still being set to nothing in the document. I need to figure out if and how I want to set that. I already have a convenience function that will read the ID. I think it will read the ID. It leads the rev from the body. I could use that. Let me think. What else? Let me look at the documentation and see how else that ID might be communicated to me. So you can see that this is an example of the return value. And there's the ID right there. Let me zoom in a little bit. So there's the ID, spaghetti with meatballs. The best way to get that is to read it from the document. I suppose that's what I should do. The other thing I can do is just say that I'm not going to set it. I have three options. I can say I'm not going to set the ID when it should be obvious. I can set it to the value provided by the user, or I can go to the effort of reading it from the stream, which is much less efficient than the other two options because I have to actually read off the network, do some parsing to get it, etc., and then put it back together. I already have the code to do that for me, but it's still a little bit annoying. I'm not sure what I should do. The truth is, practically nobody's ever going to need the document ID in this case because they know it. They just provided it. So I'm tempted to just say it's not set in that case. except that it's already set everywhere else. Okay, I'm going to take the cheap way out. I'm just going to set it to the value that they provided, unless or until I get a bug report telling me otherwise, okay? So I'm going to set it to this value because I can do that easily without having to do network parsing or whatever. And it adds consistency that probably never ever matters anyway. So that's what I'm going to do. All right. Now, I'm not going to push that up just yet because I want to see how these tests are going. If they all pass, then I'm in good shape and I can push it up and make my changes. If something breaks, though, then I have some debugging to do. So you can see here it's running against Go 1.17 through 1.21 and RC, which is upcoming, what will become 1.22. So far, it's passing. And then it runs against Gopher.js with PouchDB7 and PouchDB8. Gopher.js compiles Go to JavaScript. So this is actually running in Node.js against a PouchDB, which is the other official backend that runs in the browser. That's what that's for. Now, I didn't make any changes to PouchDB. I will need to. I need to make it match the new driver interface as well, but I'll save that for another day. I probably won't do it on a live stream unless somebody really wants to watch me make the same change I just did for PouchDB. All right, one test remaining, and then we can... Oh, actually, I'm going to go ahead and push that up for now. That last change I made. Yeah. So it's going to run the tests again, and then I'll merge. Go ahead and close that for the moment. All right, so what was a single commit is now 3 commits, but that's good. They'll all be merged together. And then I can focus on actually extending the functionality of this to return multiple types or multiple documents when appropriate. Hang on one moment. I had somebody just ask if I was doing a live stream today. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it right now. They have had the wrong link, so hopefully he'll be able to join us and watch the rest. All right, so my code coverage has dropped by 0.14%. Don't really care. That's probably 1 or maybe 2 lines of code that I added that aren't being covered. Looks like I made a mistake. One of my live stream links is not working. I'm glad you guys are here though. It means you found it, even though one of my links is broken. Give me just 1 second to try. While we're waiting for these tests to run, I'm gonna see if I can fix that in case other people are waiting for me on the other link. I think I know what I did wrong, but I'm not gonna fix it right now. Yeah, I see what happened. I'm streaming on last week's link is what's happening. Oops. All right, let me. I didn't even know that was possible. I'm not going to fix it now, but I do want to at least leave a link on the other link to this one. All right. Yeah. I want to apologize, but I don't think anybody who's here needs an apology. You're already here. It's the people who aren't here that need the apology. So anyway, snafu on my part. Oh no, coverage is failing now. What's going on there? It's probably one of the transient errors I have. Oh no. Oh, okay. Because I added the ID, now it's causing a failure. That makes sense. That makes sense. Gotta love tests. So let's fix those tests then. Oops. What's worse about this live stream link snafu is that now anybody who wants to watch the replay is going to, I'm guessing they're going to have to watch 2 hours from last week before they get to this week, which would be kind of annoying. Maybe I can repost that later. Anyway, live and learn. I was having a conversation last week about blogging, and somebody was telling me that they're a little bit self-conscious about blogging and making mistakes in public. I said, one of the things I said to them was, the sooner you start, the better, of course. And further, when you start, you have very small audience, so nobody notices your mistakes. There's nobody in your audience. So thanks for being my very small audience that can notice my mistake, so that once I'm big and famous and have thousands of people watching me, I've got all the kinks worked out. All right, what was the name of the test? This is test get. And then the subtest is called multi-part attachments. Search that, multi-part attachments. Okay. And now I expected, yeah, I need to add an ID here. I think that's it. Let me run the test locally. I should have done it before anyway, but all right. So yeah, now I have 2 failures instead of, I think it was 3 before. And multi-part attachments dot content link. All right. Is that also called foo here? Yes, and the other one is also called foo, and that's status okay. That should fix it. Yep. All right, I'm going to append this to my previous commit since it's all related. And do a force push. And there we go. Now we get to wait again. All right. So give this a few minutes. While that's happening, let me start considering the next steps. So really the next step is, and then this is something I started on last week. I need to add the multi-part mixed type here, because I need to add that to my switch statement. So basically, let me go back to the CouchDB documentation to explain why I care about that and what's happening. Where did my tab go? Oh, there it is. Okay. So when we pass in the open revs argument, oh, there's one other thing I need to do. I remember this from last week too. Well, let me finish the explanation, then I'll thinking about too many things at once. So when we pass in open revs as an argument to this API, and it's just a REST API, so it returns an HTTP response. rather than returning application JSON, which it normally does, it will return multi-part mixed. And let's see an example of that response, if they even have that here. I think there's an example somewhere. I don't know if it's here though. Let me just search here. I think it'll be documented here. Yeah, so if we set open revs and pass something there, then we get a response like this. Multi-part mixed with a boundary, and then we get multiple chunks. Each one contains an application JSON document. So, I mean, I could, in my code, try to detect that open revs argument to see if it's being passed, and then trigger on that, but I'd rather just pass that through to the server unaltered, so I don't have to worry about it. And then based on what I get back from the server, if I get multi-part mixed back, I know that it must be this because that's the only time that that endpoint will return multi-part mixed. So that's what this switch statement does. And you'll see there's a multi-part related. This is something else. This is for when you're fetching a document that contains binary attachments, and you want to get those attachments as separate parts rather than as encoded inline base 64. So that's what that one's for. The normal default case is type JSON. Multi-part related happens if you're fetching attachments, and then multi-part mixed happens when you do this open revs thing. Now, I don't know what happens if you request open revs and there's attachments. I don't know how that works. I'll have to investigate that later. Maybe I need to somehow combine both of these two functionalities, but we'll figure that out when we get there. For now, I'm going to start with a simple case. Now, if I recall, actually, I wrote a test last week, so I'm going to look at my my working copy that I haven't merged yet. I'm going to do that in a second. Let me see if these tests are done. No, they're still going. All right. So open revs is the branch I was working on last week. I have two whip commits there. It's not the right one. Okay. Yeah, I do have a test. I might copy this test. Because I remember I went to the effort of capturing the actual body. So that's useful. Let me copy this into my current working copy, into the test file. Test get. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let me try again. All right, so that should be the test I need, but it's going to fail, of course. Missing return. That's not the failure I expected, but I do know why it's doing that because this isn't return. This isn't doing anything. So let me just have this return. Actually, I'll just do a panic for now. Now it's going to panic, maybe? No. Oh, right. I forgot to set that. So I need to set the accept header as well. Let me look at the this here I need to change as well. So this just sets the request accept header to include multi-part mixed, multi-part related, and JSON. It does that unconditionally, not just for the arguments, not just for the requests that include open revs, but that shouldn't matter. Like that, I understand all three of these types. That's what I'm telling the server, and that is true. Still says unexpected accept header. Mixed, related, application JSON. I'm going to put a space in there because that feels a little bit nicer. I suppose I need to update some of the other tests. Yeah, multi-part accept header. These spaces are completely non-functional, but they make me feel happy. So I'm putting spaces in there. See our tests are going. Our tests are done. All right, I'm going to merge this change we made then. So again, this change I'm merging now doesn't add any functionality. It only refactors my CouchDB backend to use the new interface that may soon return multiple documents. That's all it does. So it's just a refactor. All right. So what I need to do now is take this work I'm doing and just commit it. Well, I want a new branch. What I need, yeah. So I need to start a new branch. Let's call it OpenRevs 3 for the heck of it, right? The thing is that this is branching off of OpenRevs 2, not off of master. So I'll fix that in just a moment. I've hit my whip commit. Now I'm going to go to master and update. Now we can see OpenRevs 2 has been fully merged, so I can delete that. Now I'll go back to OpenRevs 3. If I can spell. And I'll do a rebase on top of master. Now I should have a clean branch that has just a single commit off of master. I'm going to... I'm really surprised this isn't panicking. What that tells me is that my response is not setting the correct content type, but it is right here. Why isn't it panicking? Unable to determine document revision. I thought I had addressed this last week, but maybe that's something I haven't committed yet. By the way, if you are doing stupid things like I am and creating commits called whip, don't merge those. I'm looking at this now. I have two things called whip. I don't know which one's which. I should have been better than that yesterday, or not last week when I did this. Okay, so this is the beginning of the change I already did today, the one I just merged. This is where I was starting to do the same sort of thing here, but I don't need that. So I'm not sure why I'm getting this error, because I thought I'd fixed that last week. Apparently something is still happening. So line 427, which is right around here. I'm trying to find the right function. Here it is. So we parse the media type. Okay. It shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, I did merge that last week. So last week, should only give us that failure unable to determine document revision. It should only do that if, in this case, I believe, where's that happening? I don't remember where that's happening. Let me grep for that. Here. Extract rev, which is called in one place, not counting tests. get rev in turn is called 3 different places. All right, so this is called in 2 places, and then one of them is the one we care about. So this is where it's being called. So this is actually what's returning the error. Why is that returning the error? I need to put some sort of check in there. I thought I'd moved this. I thought I had moved this. No, there is a possibility. Let me check something quickly. Checking something in a different window. Just give me 1 second here. So I see the commit. Let me put this on the screen. I see the commit from last week. And I thought fixed that. But it's obviously not in the code right now. So probably what happened is I recently merged the CouchDB repo into the Kivik repo. I must have missed this somehow. Maybe this was part of my other branch that never got merged. But I thought I had merged it. It definitely looks like I merged it. I must have copied an old version into the main repo. Anyway, let me fix that. So I'm going to just reapply that in a new branch here. Oh. I'll use the same branch name I used before. Get rev refactor. All right, we're going to rebuild that thing we did last week. So the first bit was, I'm reading out my other screen. I'm not going to share the whole thing since we did it last week. If you really want to watch that, watch last week's replay. So I've changed this to not return rev. And then I called rev rest. Does not equal nil. Return nil from error. And then I went down to get rev, which was, well, I can just jump there from, no. Here. Take this one. Error only. I got rid of username to variables and return values. Actually, I did that wrong. This should go up before there. Good thing I did that. Every time you have to rewrite code, it gets better, isn't it, right? And then this get thing needs to be modified to not return rev. Dot, dot, dot. Right. I think that's it for that first commit. And there was one more commit. I'll do that one next. Now, here I moved this part to be called in here. Then I had this other code that's called in here. All right, should be identical to what I had done last week now. Except there's a typo in this one. Content tip. Fix that. So I made two improvements by redoing this. One was to fix a potential problem of not closing the response body in case of an error, and the other was fixing a typo in the commit message. All right, let's push this up and get this one merged. So this should be effectively a refactor, meaning that it makes no functional changes as it stands, but this allows me to make another change, the one that was causing the error on the other working copy. So while we're waiting for that to run, why don't I go ahead and rebase this on top of that change and see if it fixes the problem. Now it's panicking, as expected. All right, good. Don't you love panics? All right, so now here is where I need to add meaningful logic. I'm going to pull up my test. Test. So here we are. I started this project 3 hours and 15 minutes ago, if you count last week's live stream plus this one. And now I'm finally ready to actually start making the change that I intended to make in the first place. As Kent Beck says, make the hard change easy, then make the easy change. So I've been making the hard change easy so far. I'm not convinced that it's easy yet. We'll see. But at least it's easier. So the first thing I need to do is start parsing this thing, which I can use this multi-part reader. So I'm going to copy some of this. I'm going to need to create a new type, a new struct, I think. What do I want to call it? So up above here, the type I just created is called document. So I suppose multi-document, something like that. Let me consider if the existing rows type I have is usable for this, or if I need to do something else. Pretty sure I have a rows type here. Yeah. It has a bunch of, I don't care about any of the metadata which is in there, but maybe I can use this iterator bit. Don't care about meta. I don't care about a lot of this stuff. The body I would use. Parser. I don't need a JSON decoder. Yeah, so this iterator is designed to iterate over large responses that contain that are JSON that contain multiple documents within them. So it's basically a wrapper around this, around the JSON decoder, to do chunked decoding, since the standard library's JSON decoder doesn't do that. So I think there's a very minimal amount of this iterator that I could actually reuse, so I probably won't even try. I'm gonna follow the advice of make it work, then make it right, then make it fast. I'm gonna make it work, and if I discover that I have duplication after it works, then I can remove duplication. It's also part of the red-green refactor mantra. I have red right now. I'm going to make it green, and then I'll work on about the refactoring part. So I'm going to close that, and I'm going to create a type. I'll call it multi-document, multiple documents, multi-document, something along those lines. I'll just call it multi-docs. How about that? And then I know it's going to need this in it. What is that type? Multipart.reader. As far as I know, that's the only type field I need so far, but we'll see. Now I need this to implement the proper interface, which of course is this interface here. So let's add that compile time assertion to make sure that it matches. Multi-docs. Of course, it doesn't match. It's failing right now because it doesn't satisfy the interface. And I didn't spell it correctly. For 2 reasons it's failing. All right, so now I need to start adding those methods. Now I have those methods right up here. I can just copy this, I suppose. And then delete the ones I don't, delete the bodies. So I'm going to delete the bodies entirely for now, except for the return nil, just so it starts compiling. And then I need to change the type for all these receivers. All right, so now it should compile again. Tests are still failing because I haven't actually added the capability or integrated it anywhere. But I'm getting closer. Let me go ahead and do the integration part here. So I'm going to open this. It's not really opening, but create the reader off of the response body. Oh, I need to read that boundary. Yeah, copy that error handling too. Why not? Right, so now I'm going to return this. Right, now my code's tied together. It doesn't do anything yet because this iterator just returns nil and does nothing. So the tests are still failing, although they're not panicking anymore. Well, they are, but for a different reason. For nil pointer dereference. I have my glued together. So now I need to make this do something. Now, in this case, I had it. Let's see. Yeah, I have it do JSON unmarshal on that. I'll do something similar. I'm not going to worry about efficiency just yet, although there's probably room to do some of that. What I want to do here, whoops, didn't need to do that, is I want to get body equals d dot reader dot next part. Yes. So this will get the next part, and if it's an error, then I return it. Right? If it's not an error, then I need to parse it. So let's do. Let me think about how I want to do this. No, I don't parse it. I don't parse it. I do this row dot. What is that type? Let me see. All right, look, I don't want to look at it in this interface. I want to look at it over here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and merge. This is the commit I was working on earlier. I'm going to merge it now. You can see the code coverage test fail. I don't care about code coverage. All right, this is where I want to look at. I want to pull up what's the package name of that multipart reader. My multipart, simple enough. Yeah. Okay, I want type part. Okay, so I think I just want read. I don't care about the file name. I care about read. So I want to, and that's it's just an IO reader, so that's super simple. So I can do, I think I can do, I have the same problem here that I had on the last implementation. If you'll recall, an hour ago, when I set row.doc to d.body, d.body is an IO reader, and row.doc is just it's a read closer, and row.doc is just a reader, so it never gets closed. But I solved that problem here by closing it here when I call close on the iterator. I'm not going to have that luxury in this case, and the consequences are worse if I don't. Basically, I can't wait till the iterator is closed because I need to close this part before I can read the next part. So if there's two documents, I have to close the first one before I can read the second one because the second one's waiting on the network for me to read that first one. So I need to make, but I also don't want to and cannot expect the consumer of the driver.row to do the closing. So I need to do that closing here. I'll worry about that in a second, but I need to keep that in mind. I need to make next close the previous iteration's row if necessary. So I'm keeping that in mind. I think I have an idea how to do that, but I'll worry about that in a second. For now, I want to set row.id equals, so I'm going to put an ID in here, just like we did on the last one. Let me get rid of this. And I'm going to set that here, just like on the last one. So although it's multiple documents, they're all versions of the same document. So the ID cannot change. So I can just use the same trick as I did before. All right, so now I can set row.id equals d.id. That part's simple. I can set row.doc equals body. I'm going to call that doc, actually, just for consistency. And now I don't know the revision. I need to fetch that revision. And fortunately, I have a function to do that. We saw that function in play briefly. I breezed by it when we were just fixing that thing a moment ago. This thing right here. Extract rev. Now, yeah. So I need to do this. Yeah, I think it's safe to just call that directly. This GoDoc is inaccurate, or it's incomplete. Get rev extracts the revision from the responses etag header. If found. If not, it falls back to reading the revision from the rev field of the document itself. I think I can get rid of these named return values while I'm here. Now, what I want to make certain of is that extract rev restores response.body, and I'm certain it does, but I want to make certain of that. Yes, it does. Let me explain what I mean here. You may recall when I was looking at the documentation just a moment ago, let me pull that back up, that the revision is in the response. So what I need to do here is I need to start parsing this JSON, but I don't want to parse the whole thing because all I care about is this one field, right? I only want the revision. That's all I want. Now, in this case, in the example here, it's only a few dozen bytes. It's not a big deal. But these documents can be megabytes, potentially gigabytes long. So I don't want to read in 20 gigabytes of data just to read one field. So what I do is I step through each symbol in the JSON until I find the _rev key, and then I read the next value, and then I stop. And while I'm reading those in, I'm keeping those in a buffer so that I can reattach those as a single stream and reassemble that body so it can be reread again. So let me just quickly show you what that code looks like. So here I create a T-reader, which reads from the response body, and everything that's read from the body is also written to the buffer. So that's this buff. That's what this is, okay? Then I call this function called readRev. This is where the JSON stepping happens. It creates a new JSON decoder, and then it reads through the tokenizer. Here's the loop. As long as there's more JSON to read, it keeps going until it finds the key called _rev. Once it finds that, then it reads the next token, assuming it's a string, and returns that. If it's not a string, then it returns an error saying that it got something it didn't expect. So in the typical case, this will read 3 or 4 dozen bytes of data and return the rev. And then here again, the deferred function reconstructs the body. So you can see it sets resp.body to an anonymous struct type with io.reader and io.closer built in. The reader is a multi-reader, so it takes buff, the stuff we just read off the network, and then appends the remaining response body to it, and then sets the closer to response body. So if someone calls close on that, it closes the underlying reader. I hope that all makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. Maybe I can write a blog post about it or something. But that's what's happening there. So that's the function I want to be using now to get the revision in my new iterator here, right here. So I need to do rev, error, equals chttp get rev. And now, okay, this isn't going to work as I want, because this expects a response. So what I really want is something that just takes an IO reader. More refactoring, yay. Let me see. Let me think about how I want to do this. I think what I'm going to do is, once again, create a whip commit and make a new branch and do my refactoring and then come back. Meanwhile, my other commit has been merged, so I can update now. Let's call it get rev from body. I don't know what that API is going to look like yet, but we're going to figure it out. So why do I need the rest? So I need it because this one, response error, sees if there's an error code. A response has an error code of like 400 or something. I want to see where this function is actually used and does it need this capability. Use it in 4 places. Use it in get. Let me just do it this way. Show all references. So I'll use it in get and then JSON. In the case of the JSON response, fair enough. I use it in get rev. I use it in delete. Okay. So when I'm deleting a document, that's how I get the revision. And I use it in copy. Now what I don't know is if that response error is actually needed, because I kind of think that's being called already by this, but let's find out. So I think do rec does something like that already. No, maybe not. Basically, what I'm up against here is I feel like I'm violating the single responsibility principle. This thing called getRev is getting the rev, but it's also checking for errors. That doesn't make sense to me. That shouldn't be happening. I think I violated the SRP when I wrote this. But before I change that, I want to see if this response error is already being done. And if so, maybe I can just delete it rather than extract it. But it looks like I probably need to extract it. So do JSON calls that. I don't know if I'm calling do JSON anywhere. Okay, I'm going to just extract it. And then let me close this. Let me find all the, once again, I shouldn't have closed that. Find all references. So each one of those I'm going to modify. I'm not going to do the test one. Some of those might fail, but I'll worry about that in a second. So, and the truth is, so I actually, my previous refactor wasn't just a refactor. When I moved, this is why the single responsibility principle is a good idea. When I moved this function call into the JSON example, or the JSON switch branch, I removed that error checking from the others, which is a problem. So let me put the error checking back. In fact, I can put the error checking before I check the media type. It should go right here. All right, so there's one restored. And then getRev needs similar. Actually, I can probably simplify that. I can move that into the get. Oh, so actually it's already being done. So it was duplicated in that particular case anyway. So that bug I just told you I added, forget it. I didn't actually add a bug. It's another reason why SRP is useful, because you don't know what you're doing. So anyway, get already calls that response error. So anything that calls get, I don't need that. And I think that's just those first two instances. Now these other two instances, I need to add that here. All right, so let me look at the diff now. So I deleted the response error from getRev, so it no longer does two things. And then of the 4 places that called it, 2 of them were calling response error redundantly, so I don't need to add it. And the other 2 I added it here and delete and copy. So that should take care of it. Now let's see if I broke any tests in the process. Unexpected error, unable to determine document revision. Okay. So I broke the test for getRev specifically, but I don't think I care. Well, I'm probably do care. This isn't the same getRev I thought it was. Okay, why is that failing? Error response. What? Oh, that's the wrong instance of the test. So I don't care about this one. So basically, I have a function that tests that internal function. So this is why people say that your tests, you should not test private methods or functions. I don't completely agree with that advice. But this is one of the consequences. So I've changed the internal implementation, and now the test for the internal implementation is failing. But I don't care, because it's the test that tests an error is now failing, as you would expect, since I'm not testing for that anymore. But I shouldn't be testing for that first place, so I just delete that test. All right, tests are passing. Amend that commit. Push that up. Now, this isn't the thing I was actually trying to fix, is it? What I'm trying to fix is to make that getRev function take an IO reader, not a response. But now I can accomplish that. So let's work on that. So this getRev now. So etag actually does care about the response. So I think what I need to do is I need to export extract rev and make it just take a body. I don't know why this is still here. I hate these. I don't know why I had that there. I hate named return values when they're not necessary, when they don't add documentation value, and they don't here. So I think I need to export this and make it take, before I export it, I'm going to make it take just a body. Now that's a little bit tricky because this function actually modifies its argument by setting that body. And it's not that it's impossible to do that if I pass an IO reader directly, but it's very cumbersome. I basically have to pass a pointer to an interface, which is very unusual. So I think what I'll do is have it return the new value, the new reader. And so I'm actually going to create a new function and probably replace this one. So let's just start with that. Extract. I'll just export it to differentiate. IO.reader, and it should return. No, I want it to be an IO read closer. Is what I want it to be. Because the IO, you may not know this, but the body of a request is an IO read closer. I guess that's obvious there. Is it the response? That's called an IO reader, but it's often actually a read closer. I think that's a tangent now, though. I didn't realize that was called that there. So forget I'm mumbling. Forget what I'm talking about. I was going to make a point that actually isn't relevant to this code, so forget about it. Let me write the GoDoc, documentation-driven development, extract rev. I'm reading the existing one here. This is poorly written. I mean, it's informational, but it's not written as proper GoDoc. I'm going to copy this because I still think this is useful context. I'll just copy it down here. All right, so that's what I want my function to do. Let's make it do it. Buff :equals bytes.buffer. Let's call it T for bad names. I just call it R here. I'm gonna use T. Maybe it's a bad name, but whatever. T reader R buff. basically just copy this. Okay, and then reassembled equals. I'm going to do the same trick as before. Not using the deferred statement though. I'm going to rename this to RC for read closer, just slightly less ambiguous. I'll call this T reader, TR, T reader. And then read rev operates on TR. Oh, is that right? Yes. Yes. And then here I want reassemble. Nope, should be first. Reassembled. I think that's right. The way to find out is to have extract rev call it, and I'll do that now. So let's do reassembled rev error equals extract rev rest.body, and then rest.body equals reassembled. Return rev. I think that should be equivalent. So the test should all pass. Looks like they're passing. I'm not waiting for the test against the live database in Docker, but looks like it's working, so that's good. So my logic was right. Let's commit that. Now I have to decide what I want to do with this doc. I was thinking I would delete this. I think I might just leave it there because, well, let me see how many places it's called. It's only called in one place. So I could easily move that functionality. I will. I can move that functionality up to there. Let's extract that. Do this. And then all right, that should be equivalent. Let's run the test again. Oh, I broke something. Oh, I broke a test. I forgot that I had a test that worked on that. So let's make this call the exported one now. So I already have a test on getRev. Remember we just fixed that a moment ago, so it should be testing the useful stuff there. I just need to test that that this works. So let's have it call. But now instead of calling on a response, it should be on just on a reader. Okay, I don't care about the head request. Well, technically I care about that, but in the other function. So this one should care about that. Does it? It doesn't. All right, let's move that. Let's move that test. Tests are written differently, but that's okay. I'll adapt. Expected and error. So this should just be called expected. Empty body. That one should be valid here. I just need to pass in don't want to call this respo. Let's call this RC. So let's pass in that not closer to RC. Invalid JSON, that should be a valid test for this case. Rev found, so that one's successful. Rev found in the middle, so this one is the first one. The rev is found in the very first thing. Here it's found somewhere in the middle. Should be equivalent, but I guess it was useful when I was writing that test originally. Rev not found in middle, so I don't know why I just call it not found. I don't need middle in there anywhere. All right. That anymore. Assembled. So here it actually reads the reassembled reader to make sure that it's still expected. Let's see if the tests work out. No, they don't. Something's broken. Extract rev found. So this one is broken. Why is it broken? So my reassembled reader is broken, it appears. It's good that I tested that. Wait a minute. It says I expected null. Oh, I know why. It's because I changed the name of that test. At least in that particular case, that's why. No, I didn't change the name. Oh, I changed the name of all the tests because I renamed. Yeah, that's why. Okay. So the snapshots on disk are broken. The golden files they don't match anymore because I renamed the test. Let me. I don't want to do it here. Let me fix that. I think that should fix it. Let's see. Test passed. Yay. So I just had to rename the snapshot files. See if there are any other tests that are failing. Looks like we're good. I'm just going to merge this into the previous commit. I don't think it's meaningful enough to be two commits. I think we're done with that particular side project. Is now extract rev takes a IO reader. Okay, let's merge this. Getting close to time here, so I guess this will be a 3-part series at least. But I actually think we're getting pretty close. I think next week, I think we just have to flesh out that iterator to work over the multi-part mixed or multi-part is it mixed? Multi-part related, whichever one it is. Content type, which I think is going to be pretty straightforward. There might be some surprises, but I think it'll be easy. So that will be what I do next Monday. I hope you can join me then. I'm thinking about, I think I mentioned this last week, I'm thinking of starting streaming twice a week. I have time on Friday afternoons as well. It's Monday afternoon for me at least, here where I live. So I'm thinking probably not, I may stream this Friday, I'm not sure, but the following Friday, unless I come up with a conflict, I'm going to be streaming, I'm gonna start doing more like tutorial stuff where I follow a tutorial. I've done that a few times already on my Monday stream. I did one where I went through a tutorial on how to do fuzz testing. I did that a few weeks ago. You can catch the replay on YouTube if you want to. And I did one. What was the other one I did? I don't remember right now. I have to look up my own history. Oh, building a linter. One of the first ones I did, I built a linter following a tutorial. So I'm looking for some Go related tutorials. Ideally, things I've never done before, so I can learn at the same time. Maybe one on serverless, or I don't know. But I'll probably keep my Monday stream for coding a project like this one, and then Friday I'll do like a tutorial where I learn something along with you. So I have a couple in mind. I'm working with someone who runs who has a bunch of Go tutorials, and they run a sort of Go training program. I'm gonna probably do one of theirs as my first one, which will probably be next Friday. So if you'd like to be informed of that, let me know. Or actually, the best way is to subscribe to my daily mailing list. If you're not already, head to boldlygo.tech/daily and you can subscribe. And I send 5 days a week Go-related content, and I include announcements there about my live streams. So if you're interested in that, that's probably the best way to go. Let's see. As soon as these tests finish running, I'll merge this, and then yeah, I think next week we can just kind of hit the ground running with fleshing out that iterator, and then maybe doing some refactoring. I have one other feature I'm working on. I was actually working on it today with the way I handle some of the optional options in this API, and then I'm going to be releasing version 4 of the Kivik library. So maybe I'll do that on the live stream too. How to prepare a release. There's not a whole lot to it, but it's probably worth discussing if you've never done that sort of thing. If you're not an open source maintainer or contributor, you might not be familiar. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe next week, more likely the week after, but we'll see. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap up for today. I mean, I guess I could stick around breathing at you while I wait for the tests to run, but I'm not sure how interesting that really is. So I think I'll just end this. I expect these tests to pass. I guess I can just wait and merge this thing since we're here and there's a few minutes. But if you drop off it, don't worry. I won't feel bad. Yeah, the tests are passing on the main one. So thanks for joining. I really appreciate having the feedback while I'm coding. Sorry for the snafu about the wrong link. I'll try to remember not to do that again. I have a question here. What's happening? I just went into a video to learn how to help code my game. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. Maybe you just joined the video. I'm not sure. We're just wrapping up. So I've been coding on one of my APIs. If you have a more specific question, feel free to ask it right now. I'll try to answer it immediately. But yeah, we're wrapping up. I'll be doing this again in a week, talking about more of this. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm writing Go code to add a feature to one of my libraries. You can catch the replay if you want, and I explained a lot of that at the beginning of it. I'll be doing more of that next week, though. So I'll be picking up where I'm leaving off right now, a week from now. Oh yeah, sorry you come in at the end. Maybe you can join next week. Next week I'll be doing more of the same live coding in Go. So I hope to see you and everybody else again in a week. It looks like the tests have passed, so I will merge this thing. Yay. One last bit of housekeeping then. Just update my local branches. Conflict. Not surprised. Let's resolve that. Oh, it's a conflict about GoDoc. There, that should take care of it. Yeah. I'm going to push this branch up to the server. I'm not going to, I'll create a pull request. I'm not going to merge it right now. Obviously, it's incomplete, but if you're interested, of course, you can go look at it. And then next week, I'll have it there to continue. What was the number? I don't remember. I'll add that later. Make it a draft. All right, so I think I'm going to wrap up. Just have 3 minutes till the scheduled end time anyway, and I'm at a good stopping spot. So let's wrap it up here. I hope to see you all next week. Thanks to everybody for joining me. Talk to you later.